The Jim and Terry Show, suffering under a deluge of snow. Go away. It's time for some sunnier days, I think. Spring. Will it ever come? Not at this rate. Digging myself out from under a deluge of snow. My good friend Jim, unable to make it this time, so again I venture off into places that I know my good friend Jim would have some 2 cents to add into the conversation, but it's just me. So what do I find that's intriguing now? Well, I'm a history buff, a history major. And when I see things that draw parallels to the past, I pay attention. Flags go up. And when I see that this week over in Munich, there is a conference, a big European conference on the state of Europe, security in Europe. And when I see that Pete Hegseth, the new DOD for the Trump 2.0 is there, when I see that J.D. Vance, Hillbilly Elegy, is there, I pay attention. And what I've heard so far from Munich sounds some alarm bells. And I will defer to a podcast called Professor Gertis Explains, and I will cue it up. Here we go.
Okay, so I wanted to have a dedicated video to this. This is the Munich conference. It's happening today. Some big people will be there. You're going to have the Secretary of Defense at the Munich conference. I believe you're going to have General Kellogg is going to be at the Munich conference, and he plans to be on the sidelines talking to European leaders. J.D. Vance is going to be there, and J.D. Vance and Zelensky are supposed to meet at the Munich conference. And we're going to talk about the Munich conference, but I want to set it in light of a previous Munich conference. So this was the famous Peace in Our Time speech where Neville Chamberlain declares that the British people are going to have peace in their lifetime. Again, it's 1938, and it's because it just came from a Munich conference, and he's holding the Munich Agreement. Now, what is the Munich Agreement? Okay, the agreement provided for the German annexation of part of Czechoslovakia. It's called the Sudetenland, where more than 3 million people, mainly ethnic Germans, lived. The pact, also known in some areas as the Munich Betrayal, because of a previous 1924 alliance agreement and a 1925 military pact between France and Czechoslovakia Republic. Okay, so that's an interesting backdrop. Now, that was the agreement that came out of a peace deal. This is nothing like this. This is something different, but I'm afraid it's going to have potentially the same effect over time if something doesn't shift from where it seems like it's going here, and that we'll see another repeat of something famous like this picture. This is Neville Chamberlain holding up that thing in a little bit of a video clip of it. Okay, so but before we talk about that, let's talk about this. The context here was that World War I was pretty awful, as everybody knows. Like World War I in the 19 teens, it was slaughter beyond people's belief. And a generation later, there was no appetite for war in Europe. Well, not from the peace-loving nations. There was an appetite in Germany, but within France and England and so on and so forth, they were just not wanting to have any kind of war. So it's 1938, so it's about 20 years later, and they're like, look, we don't want to repeat this. I have this agreement. He will honor this agreement. We're going to have peace in our time. Didn't work out.
Peace in our time. Remember when Trump was campaigning, he wasn't elected yet. On day one, as soon as I'm elected, I will have peace. Day one, peace. Well, we're long past winning the election. We're long past the inauguration, and there's still no peace. But this is looking like something. Trump's spokesperson, Pete Hegseth, has said some stuff that has rattled everybody in NATO, everybody in Europe, Canada too. What's going on? Well, it seems like Pete Hegseth is saying there is no possibility for Ukraine to go back to 2014 and the borders that it had before Putin walked into Crimea. Whoa, what? Isn't that the whole reason Ukraine is fighting to restore the borders? Not just Crimea, but the 4 territories, the Donbass, and the other 3 that, the names escape me. But isn't that the whole point? It's not just to turn back Russia at this point, but to reclaim, and they won't settle, I don't think, until they get some assurances. And that is the problem. The assurances Ukraine is looking for is NATO membership and restoring the boundaries for the international recognized territories of Ukraine before 2014. And Trump's spokesperson is saying there's no way that is possible. And I'm wondering if we got some kind of play going on between Putin and Trump, which would not surprise me. I'm still convinced 2016 was a Russian job. A media manipulation. I'm not sure about the votes and voting machines and election integrity and all that stuff. But manufactured consent, if you look it up, is a term to talk about media manipulation and getting people to think what you want them to think and believe what you want them to believe. And that is how I think Trump got in on 2016, how I think he got in 2024, the same thing. Manufactured consent, where you convince people that black is white, up is down, left is right, and people vote for the orange Jesus because they're convinced that he alone can fix it. Well, when it comes time to Munich, the second Munich conference, and Professor Gerdes, that clip outlined the Chamberlain, the famous movie clip of Chamberlain with this flapping page in the wind, fresh from visiting Adolf Hitler. There will be peace in our time. Really, 1938, on the precipice of war. If only they could see that. And I'm seeing the same thing right now with Pete Hegseth, with J.D. Vance, with Donald Trump, selling out. I'm not going to use that strong language. Selling out, just like the Allies agreed and acquiesced and gave up Czechoslovakia to Germany. Peace at any price. Peace in our time. It cost Czechoslovakia. But, of course, Sudetenland, which is part of Czechoslovakia, was not enough. And Adolf Hitler continued to roll over the rest of Europe. 1939. So, yeah, does it have an eerie familiarity? To me, as a history teacher, of course it does. Does it mean it's going to happen that way? Well, it's, change Adolf Hitler to Vladimir Putin, and it looks like instead of Czechoslovakia, you substitute Ukraine. It looks like all the pieces are in play. And that is where history, echoes of the past, sound the alarm bells, raise the flags, and I am a little bit concerned. I was concerned when Hegseth won. He was selected. He was approved by the Senate. What? So the cowards of the county are in the Senate, and the Republicans, and they didn't dare upset the orange Jesus. So Hegseth secured his nomination for Department of Defense, the least qualified, least experienced person to hold that position in American history. And if you don't believe me, do some of your own digging into Pete Hegseth and compare him with former Department of Defense ministers, or secretaries, I guess is what they call them in the United States. So there you go. Am I concerned? Yes. Am I concerned about history repeating itself? Absolutely. Am I concerned that the U.S. is giving away Ukraine under threat? Do this or else. Or else what? And if you're a Republican, this is despicable and shameful. And as much as I did not agree with John McCain on much, he did do something, and that is stand firm against Russia. Where is that sentiment now? Where is Mitch McConnell? Was it too late now for Mitch McConnell? He's handed over the reins of the Senate, so he's no longer the leader. So, where is the voice of republicanism? Those old hawks, those war hawks, those people who were, let's get them, of the Bush era. Where are they? It seems like they're selling the farm, giving up the farm. In this case, that means Ukraine. Does that mean NATO is going to do something? Well, I've often argued that if you want to end the war, that NATO needs to step in and guarantee the sovereignty of Ukrainian territory, guarantee Ukraine a place at the NATO assembly. And here we have Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance echoing the words, there will be no NATO for Ukraine. There will be no membership. There will be no settling of 2014 boundaries. And the list of things that are going on to have peace is a complete sellout of Ukraine and Zelensky. Now, some people are saying, well, Zelensky, it's, not a lot of Ukrainians are happy with him. It's time for him to go. Change of leadership, maybe settle peace without Zelensky. And I'm thinking, he got you through this, just like Trudeau got Canada through COVID. You might not like it, but, he got the job done. And I'm thinking Zelensky probably needs to be given a freer rein. And NATO, I think you better face the facts that Trump is not your friend anymore. The U.S. is unreliable. They're your family member that's got mental health issues. They are not able to reasonably respond to the challenges of this generation. Bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Great song. Maybe it's time to put the U.S. out to mom and apple pie pasture and look for new allegiances, new alliances, new treaties, whatever the arrangement is. You may not lean on the U.S. anymore. They're going to do their own thing. American exceptionalism, American isolationism. Hold on to your hats. It'll get messy before it gets better. Just watch yourself. Ukraine. It's now or never. Jim and Terry Show signing off. Bye-bye.